Whatculture.
We all want to believe. Aliens, Bigfoot, the Abominable Snowman, Jar Jar Binks. If something comes across as fascinating and cool, it makes sense we would all hope it was actually real. Unsurprisingly though, more often than not a lot of these too good to be true are just that. They send us loopy with pleasure and then drag us crashing down to earth as we realise that life is exactly as we thought it was. I'm Simon from Whatculture, and this is the 10 biggest hoaxes that fooled the world. Number 10, the Mars hoax. Originally claimed in an email chain that started in October 2003, the word on the street was that Mars was going to appear larger than the moon in the night sky, so you'd be able to see it from your house. This crops up every single year more often than not, but it's just not true. What was is that Mars was going to be at its closest point to Earth, but that didn't mean you were going to have this grand view or that it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. It wasn't. Mars was brighter on this night, sure, but not to the extent you could look at it like you do the moon. Number 9, the Perpetual motion machine. In 1812, eccentric American inventor Charles Redheffer claimed he had invented a perpetual motion machine. In case you don't know, why would you? A perpetual motion machine is a device that, once started, can maintain its motion without further input. This, with our current understanding of physics, is impossible. So when Redheffer said he had done it and applied to the government for money to fund his project, they sent some inspectors round to see what the deal was. It was quite clear something wasn't right, and one of these inspectors saw a string attached to it that led into another room. In this room was sat an old bearded man turning a crank handle with one hand and eating a crust of bread with the other. Number 8, Piltdown Man. Starting in a gravel pit in Pittown in 1912 by a man called Charles Dawson, he claimed to have found broken fragments of an early human skull. The specimen appeared to have the jawbone of an ape but the cranium of a modern human, and the discovery was hailed as the missing link between humans and apes. It's a big deal. Over the following years, other genuine fossils were discovered around the world that did not fit with the Piltdown Man, and suspicions began to be raised about its authenticity. Eventually, in 1953, it was exposed as a fake, because it was actually composed of a medieval skull, the jawbone of an orangutan, and the teeth of a chimpanzee. Number 7, the Tassa de Tribe. Supposedly a community of people that had remained isolated from the rest of the world since the Stone Age, the Tassa de Tribe were a bunch of dudes living peacefully in jungle caves. Access to the tribe was tightly controlled by a man named Manuel Izaldi Jr., who allowed many visitors, including celebrities and anthropologists, to visit the tribes in their caves, carefully guiding them around. Serving as some sort of venture to prove that modern culture ultimately corrupts peace, it was used to hammer home that something is wrong with the West. And then the hoax was blown open. When Swiss journalist Oswald Eiton visited the tribes unexpectedly, he found them chilling in huts, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Like teenagers. Number 6, life discovered on the moon. Running in the Sun newspaper in 1835, the paper did report that life on the moon had been discovered, saying astronomer Sir John Herschel had stumbled across it using a well-good telescope. The article went super in-depth at all, saying it had trees, rivers, beaches, animals, and even unicorns. Obviously this was nonsense and just a bizarre way to try and sell more copies of the paper. But there's also an argument this was done to satirise other publications who would run stories that were just as daft. Number 5, crop circles. Stepping back all the way to the 1600s, it was Doug Bower and Dave Chorley who really took this idea and ran with it in the 1970s. While they at first claimed their manipulated fields were the result of little green men, they soon changed their tune and admitted they had used a simple set of tools consisting of a plank of wood and a length of rope to do it themselves. And more or less, this is what the deal is everywhere as opposed to spaceships coming down from the stars and doing strange things. Number 4, spaghetti trees. It's rare for the BBC to try and troll people, and yet that's what they set out to do in April 1957. Tying it in with April Fool's Day, the broadcaster aired a joke episode of its documentary show Panorama dedicated to the spaghetti harvest. Given that spaghetti was relatively unknown in Britain at the time, audiences were amazed with a Swiss family who were bringing in their harvest from a spaghetti tree. As you would imagine, this encouraged viewers to get in touch with the BBC and ask how they could grow their own. Rather than explain what was actually going on, representatives actually gave out advice too, telling them to place a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best. Number 3, the Alien Autopsy. One of the more famous hoaxes, a grainy black and white film supposedly showing the autopsy of an alien life form surfaced in the early 90s, caused quite the sensation. On release, it was said to be straight out of Area 51. The video showed a small pot-bellied alien stretched out on an operating table with a severe injury to its right leg. Unfortunately, in 2006, the film's creator Ray Santilli admitted the video was a fake. It was actually shot in a flat in Camden with 2 alien dummies animal organs, and some raspberry jam. Number 2, The War of the Worlds. The original radio broadcast of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells caused mass panic amongst listeners who, due to the news report format of the play, thought that the Earth was actually being invaded by aliens. There was widespread outrage afterwards as people said the show was deceptive and cruel to the public. Number 1, The Cottingley Fairies. The Cottingley Fairies may be one of the most well-known pranks in the history of hoaxes. It consists of a series of 5 photographs apparently showing 2 young girls playing with the fairies that live at the bottom of their garden. It wasn't until 1983 that the girls, Elise Wright and Frances Griffiths, finally admitted to the fraudulent nature of the photos. They recounted how Elise had copied the illustrations from a popular children's book and just propped them up with hat pins. Sometimes the world really does let you down, and it lets you down hard. Know of any other hoaxes that tricked people? Let us know in the comments below, and then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can even come tell Whatculture at Whatculture, then visit Whatculture at whatculture.com, then go back to Twitter and find me at SimonMiller316. I am Simon from Whatculture, or maybe I'm a hoax.